Hi, and welcome to the Chairman's Circle. I'm Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts. I'm pleased to bring this program to you where we meet interesting people, talk about important issues, and give you a chance to weigh in on social media. Today's topic, human trafficking in Fulton County and what's being done to address this growing problem. We'll hear from a survivor and we'll talk to someone who is leading the charge to help Fulton victims in the Chairman's Circle next. Today we're talking about a crisis affecting middle school age girls in Atlanta and Fulton County. I'm referring to human trafficking. I was shocked and disgusted to learn that Atlanta remains one of the top cities in the nation for human trafficking and child prostitution. These young people are the future of our community, and we will not allow them to be treated as commodities. So I, as chairman, established a task force on human trafficking. This task force will make policy recommendations and identify resource gaps in meeting the needs of victims, as well as greater prevention efforts to keep children out of harm's way. The task force will also examine law enforcement and prosecution issues at the local, the state, and federal levels. My first guest knows all about this topic too well. She is executive director of a nonprofit called YouthSpark that operates in partnership with the Fulton County Juvenile Court. Jennifer Swain. Miss Jennifer Swain, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
Okay, first of all, tell me about YouthSpark.
Well, Chairman, YouthSpark was formed really with a small but mighty group of women, including Fulton County Commissioner Nancy Boxell back in early 2000 when Fulton County...
I should remember that. Well, no, I didn't get here until 2002. So I did not, okay.
We were very early on in the movement then, and basically it started out of Fulton County Juvenile Court, and it was what we call the founding mothers of the movement, Commissioner Nancy Boxell, Deborah Richardson, Fulton County Juvenile Court Judge Nina Hickson, along with Patrice Perkins Hooker and Stephanie Davis, and they really recognized that 12-year-olds were coming through Fulton County Juvenile Court with shackles and charges back then of actual prostitution. And we had girls as young as 12 years old going to jail for prostitution, and the men who bought and sold her got off with a $50 fine or didn't even get arrested.
So how did you get involved in the movement?
I came on board several years later in 2008, and when I joined the team moving here to Atlanta, I really want to just sort of share my communication skills. At the time, the organization was called the Juvenile Justice Fund, and we owned and operated the first safe house in the southeast region of the United States. And we would basically get girls into residential treatment. In 2008, we had a campaign where we really wanted to start looking at the laws.
Okay, now that I do remember because I was a member of the board at the time.
Absolutely.
So how did you come up with the name YouthSpark? Was that already, did Nancy and the others have that, or were you involved in that as well?
Well, it actually started out as the Juvenile Justice Fund. Okay. And we went through some rebranding because we were so fortunate to be leaders in the nation on this. Our partnership with Juvenile Court has afforded us the ability to reach kids early on. But in 2010, we began realizing that language matters so much when we talk about this issue. And our former name, the Juvenile Justice Fund, we wanted people to know that these are victims, these are criminals. And we wanted to sort of go through some positive rebranding, and that's how we restructured our name into YouthSpark at that time.
Okay, and how are you funded?
We have a mix of public and private funders, and I really want to take a moment to say thank you to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, because we have been awarded funds as well to be able to serve these kids. But we do a lot of public and private funding opportunities, and this is a great way for individuals to get involved.
So someone who's listening who wants to get involved, what do they need to do?
You can go to our website at youth-spark.org. There's so many ways that you can get involved. When you think about this issue, some people really feel like when they hear that story on the news or when they first get involved, like you, they're disgusted. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to get involved. I always tell people to look at who you are in your life and look at the youth in your life. But you can go on our website at youth-spark.org and you can get involved with helping with direct services, or you can use your voice to make sure we're holding the adults who do this accountable.
Okay, what are direct services?
We are grateful for our youth center. Over the last 3 years, we've significantly expanded our services. Back in the day when this first started, we only talked about girls. We now know that it's happening to boys, and it's now happening to LGBTQ youth as well. And we don't have a lot of services available for them. So in 2015, we embarked on a capital campaign, and Fulton County allowed us to take a small portion of Fulton County Juvenile Court and create a new youth center where we're able to serve boys, girls, and LGBTQ youth. You'll hear later from a survivor who works on staff with us as a case manager, because one of the things that we do is meet them where they are. Kids and young girls come into our court, they don't know that they're a victim. So we have to begin to share with them the education, but we also offer crisis intervention. We have weekly support groups, and weekly support groups are one thing, but they won't help if the kids can't get there consistently. So with the funds that we've been able to raise and through the support of Fulton County, we can not only provide, counseling services, intervention services, court therapy, advocacy, but we also provide transportation. We also provide food. This issue is about, power and control. This issue is about a lack of resources. A lot of our clients, if they cannot purchase it with TANF funds, they don't have it. And so we have a dream closet that is filled by community members with community donations, toiletry items, so that when a family or a young child needs something, they can step in.
That's what I did. I mean, when I got involved in now I'm remembering, I went to the Hilton Hotel in particular, where my friend of mine was the general manager at the time, and got a ton of stuff for him to donate. His wife got involved as well. But walk me through a typical situation when a victim comes to your attention. What happens?
We're just so grateful for our probation department at Fulton County. We couldn't do it without them.
Okay.
When we train them and say, what does a victim look like? We are educating them that when a child is a runaway, when a child comes in and she has a 27-year-old boyfriend, when a child comes in with multiple STDs, one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we're looking and we know how to ask the right questions. And
so they call you and tell you, I have someone that I think may need your services. Is that how it works?
Yes, or the judge may call us right to the bench. If you have a young person before you and they've been educated to know the signs, we will go right into court, or they can walk that child directly down into our center, and we're able to do an assessment on site.
Okay, what are the signs, or some of the signs?
Chairman, I'm glad you asked that question, because I'd love to be able to tell you exactly what it looks like. But the truth is, it doesn't really have a face. You have children that are more vulnerable, especially those children who are runaways, especially those children where there is physical or other drug abuse in the home. You have the foster care youth who are have extreme higher vulnerabilities. But the one thing that I've said is that trafficking happens in every culture, in every community. It just looks differently. People tend to think that it's a Atlanta problem only. We've had victims that come from the south side of Atlanta. We've had victims that come from South Fulton, but we've also had victims that come from North Fulton as well. It just looks differently.
Tell me, what is it about Atlanta and Fulton County? Why are we ranked near the top in the world, for that matter, for trafficking?
Well, there's a lot of reasons that make Atlanta and Fulton County a hub. When you have access, when you are a growing city, when you have a booming convention and tourism, a lot of people are always coming into our city. You're going to have a lot of people that come here, a lot of good people that come here, but you have a lot of bad people that come here. We have a really high sex tourism city here. We have a lot of strip clubs, per capita than other people. And one of the things that I've really noticed about Atlanta and Fulton County is that the adult sex industry is not necessarily a frowned upon thing as other places or where it used to be back in the day. You have a lot of children that have looked at the glamorization of that lifestyle, and they think that it is a viable option when you have an adult introducing you to that. We have the world's busiest airport here.
But on the point of the adult clubs, are you saying that the adult clubs have a role to play in this, that they are part of the problem?
We all have a role to play in this. Every sector has a role to play. But when we begin to talk about how we look at the adult entertainment industry, several years ago, we commissioned a tiny study to really look at this. And one of the things that we recognize is that while it may not be happening in some of the adult establishment, the industry itself promotes secondary effects that children are caught up in that market. There is not just one separate market for children. And we're not talking about pedophiles. We're not talking about the creepy guy in the park that's going up trying to offer a kid candy. That happens. Some kids are actually bought and sold into slavery because they are snatched. But there are a lot of children that are inherently growing up in this place where it is normal. They've been sexually exploited. You know, a lot of the things that we face, and we recognize that children get caught up in the adult market. So while it may not be happening that you have 12-year-olds dancing in some of these clubs, we do recognize that when you have this presence in this activity, there is a higher incidence that the activity will happen in and around these establishments.
Okay, and I assume also that typically it's a male that's involved. A male conventioneer comes to town or guest, and then so how, I'm just trying to understand how all this works. Male checks into a hotel and what happens?
Well, I think bringing up the hotel industry is important because we have the one thing I really want to start by saying is that we have a lot of major hotels here in Atlanta that have stepped up to the fight. They are working with law enforcement. They are educating their staff, all the way from the top to the valet staff. Everybody is trying to figure out how we can be eyes and ears. But it happens in every establishment. When we first started doing the research count to see where this actually happens, we realized that it was prevalent among 4 major portals. 1, actual street level prostitution. 2, with buyers and johns and hotels. 3, with actual escort services. And 4, online activity. Out of those 4 major portals, the online activity is the one that has increased significantly. Every single year we continue this problem. But hotels, it happens there. It's just a matter of, do you know what you're looking at?
And that goes back to when I asked you earlier about the signs. I mean, is it a older gentleman with a young girl that looks out of place? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I've been doing this work for just about 10 years now. And I recognize that there's going to be something that just doesn't look right. Now, we teach hotel workers and community members that when you see a presence of a relationship that may not look like a father and a daughter, you may see the victim that may be looking a bit hesitant, or a victim that will not make eye contact with you. You may see a victim where she is dressed inappropriately in the middle of the day and with a gentleman that may be in a suit. One of the things that I think that we've done over the years is that we have taught law enforcement to act as social workers and go looking for the victims. One of the things that we must do as advocates, and I hope that we're able to work with your new task force to be able to do this, is to educate the public that we need to stop just looking for victims, because you don't know really what it looks like.
All right, let's talk about legislation, local, state, any legislation that you're aware of, you're promoting that to help to address the problem.
We've done a very good job over the last several years in tightening our state laws. Georgia has a human trafficking law, HB 200, that really allows law enforcement to go after those prosecutors.
Has it been effective?
It has been, and it helps to ensure that children are treated as victims always. If you are under the age of 18, then you should always be treated as a victim and not a criminal. We've done very good to educate, and we have some laws on the books that forces places like adult entertainment industries, restaurants, bars, and hotels to put notices up so that if a victim is there, then there's a sign that will say, here's how you can get help. Here's a number that you can call.
Has that been effective? I've seen actually one sign at our airport. Actually, it wasn't at our airport, it was at another airport. Is that effective? It
is effective, because sometimes when victims are in a moment where they feel empowered and they feel like they feel strong enough to step away, they will see a number and they may take the opportunity. There's a national hotline that the number is there in Polaris, and anybody can go to the Polaris Project and see the results of those calls. I think Georgia gets around about 6,000 calls. And so it is there. And I think that when we do things like make it available, then victims will reach out to get help. I want to just add one thing. Last year, we were able to partner with the Board of Commissioners, and I'm so thankful to all of you guys for your support, because we decided to attack this problem at the local level. And we worked with Commissioner Bob Ellis, to be able to go in and basically make Fulton County legislation that will allow law enforcement to go after the buyers. We don't want to continue arresting prostituted individuals. When we pull the arrest records, we realize that prostituted individuals are disproportionately arrested than their purchasers. Fulton County was the very first county that allowed us to create local legislation that empowers law enforcement to arrest buyers. And I know that other counties have been following suit, so that is a major, major victory for us.
Well, thanks to you and your organization and all of your efforts. I could spend a whole day talking with you about this, but we do have to talk with a survivor when we continue.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We've been talking about the real issue of human trafficking in the Atlanta and Fulton County area. Georgia ranks among the country's top 10 states in terms of human trafficking because of its interstates, our international airport, billion-dollar convention and tourism industry, and our thriving strip club scene. In fact, nearly 10,000 sex trafficking transactions occur per month in the metro area, and about 250 girls and 50 boys in the area are currently being victimized. My next guest was once victimized, but now helps others who are living through that same kind of pain. Ms. Dorsey Jones, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for taking time out to share your story.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start at the beginning. What happened?
When I was 11 years old, my mom moved us to Bainbridge, Georgia when I was actually 6. And my mother was the type of person that she didn't really know how to provide for her children based on the lifestyle that she was given.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I grew up with 8, but my mom said she had a total of 16 children altogether. So some
was there dad in the home?
I lost my father when I was 2, and she had different men by her other children.
Okay.
So when she brought us to Bainbridge, Georgia, which is South Georgia, I was 6 years old, and she dropped us off to her mother's house. And in that home, it was 7 people.
Her mother, your grandmother?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it was 7 people living in a 2-bedroom home, and my mom dropped her 4 children off to that location. And at that time, all we were told that my mom was across the river. And when you are a little kid, you think across the river is far, but she was actually 15 minutes away. So living in a home with my grandmother, we were being beaten every day, and we were mistreated by my grandmother and my aunt. And
was there a man in the home at that time, or just your grandmother and your aunt?
It was my aunt's boyfriend. He was there too, but he didn't abuse us. It was just my grandmother and my aunt that abused us.
But why in the world would your grandmother abuse you?
I really can't answer that. I just know that there was a lot of mental health issues on my mother's side, and that could have contributed to that. But I came from Norfolk, Virginia, where on my father's side, my grandmother was very loving and she was very kind. So I didn't get the same treatment that I got once I came to Georgia. So when my mom left us, it caused her family to beat us and mistreat us.
Why I don't understand. Why would they beat you? Were you?
It wasn't that we were doing anything that most kids didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't explain why they mistreated us, but they did, and they did it on a regular basis.
Physically abuse you?
Physically,
spanking,
and
whippings, things of that nature?
And very abusive with language.
Okay.
So my mom left us there for a long period of time, and then she came back and she got us.
Long period of time, meaning 6 months, a year?
About 8 months.
Okay.
Okay. So then when she came back to retrieve us, she took 3 of my siblings and she left me in the home with my grandmother and my aunt. So that meant I was going to get beat a little bit longer. So one particular day, she decided that she was going to come back and pick me up and let me live with her, my stepfather, and my 3 siblings.
Your mom was going to come back and get you? Okay.
Yes, sir. So she did. And my stepfather was a womanizer. he didn't really love my mom, but he loved what my mom had to offer. She was receiving Social Security checks from my father, who passed in the military. So she had a substantial amount of money that was coming in. But because he gambled on the weekend and he had women on the side, him and my mom would have altercations, and that would cause them to separate, and we would walk the street.
Now, how old were you at that time?
I was 6.
Still 6, okay.
Yes, sir. So my birthday wasn't until November, so I didn't turn 7 until November. So during that time, he would put us out and we wouldn't have anywhere to go. So we would walk the street, or we would go stay with my mom's friends. And then finally, she went to a trailer park and she got a trailer. We didn't have lights, we didn't have water, and we didn't have food, but we stayed in that trailer in a bed with my mom. And this particular day,
But he was still with you?
No, he separated from my mom at the time.
So it's now your mom, you and your siblings in the trailer?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And a lot of times we didn't have food. So what he would do is he knew when my mom would receive her Social Security check and her VA check. And then he would be nice and he would come over and he would bring us different little foods to eat because we don't have electricity. So this particular time he came back to the house and he talked to my mom, and she decided to go back to him. And life was good for a while. He would buy us shoes if we needed that. He made sure we had food, but their relationship was off and on because of the way he treated her. So this.
Now, you still 6, 7, 8?
Now I'm in the 4th grade. Okay, time has come about. We've been in the house with him for some years, but him and my mom still got this relationship. It's off and on, and they're fussing and fighting.
Were you being abused during that period of time? Okay.
Not at that particular time.
Okay. So you're in the 4th grade now?
Yes, sir. Okay. I'm in the 4th grade, and my mom moved out of his home, and my mom moved in a home behind him. And we don't have lights. Sometimes we don't have water, and a lot of times we don't have food. Mm-hmm. So my neighbor crumbled up $20. It was on a Friday, and he came to the gate. The door was missing from the gate, and he came to the gate, and he crumbled up $20, and he put that $20 in my hand. Mm-hmm. And when he put that $20 in my hand, a 4th grader, I thought, wow, this could change my life because I could buy some food. Mm-hmm. So I took the $20 and I bought some beef stew, and I bought 2 cans of green beans, and I prepared a meal. So when he gave me that $20, he taught me how to go through the woods, get to the main street, go to the back of his house, because his room was adjacent to the back of the house. And that's where he would sexually abuse me.
So every time you go, you get $20?
Sometimes I didn't get anything because I didn't know to ask for $20. I got the $20 from one of the persons who first started having sex with me more than I got it from his brother and his dad. They wouldn't give me money. His father would give me like fruit. He would give me oranges, but the other brother wouldn't give me anything.
So did you have any conversations with your mom about what was going on?
No, sir, because I was young and I just didn't know. I was using my body to change the circumstances in our home. And once they would have their way with me, the man down the street started sleeping with me. And then the man behind us, his wife worked 3 to 11, so she started sleeping with me as well. He started sleeping with me as well when his wife was working the night shift. So it just became my norm. It became my new normal. And when we didn't have what we needed in the house, I learned to walk the street and use my body from 11 to 17 to make things happen for me and my siblings.
So when did you realize that you wanted to make a change?
It wasn't so much of wanting a change, it was just wanting to be accepted and wanting to be loved and missing my mom and having that relationship. So when I was 12 years old, a lady took me in her home and she began to cultivate me and she began to love me. But her and her husband had a very rocky relationship, so she moved to Florida, so that caused me to be back on the street. So what I did was, I was staying anywhere and everywhere. I just tried to make sure that I was a sweet girl, a nice girl, so that if I went to my friend's house and I was afforded to stay the night, I was so good and so well behaved that I'd be given an opportunity to stay another night. And that's how I lived my life, just floating, being a floater, staying different places and sleeping outside sometimes if it was necessary, staying up late. And it wasn't because my mom ever put me out of the home. It's just that the home was so deplorable and I didn't have what I desired that I left.
Were you in school?
Yes, sir. I was at school, and a lot of times I didn't go to school because kids would pick at me. They would pick at the way I dressed. They would pick at me because my hair wasn't combed. They would pick at me because I had a body odor. They would pick at me because I didn't look like they looked. So a lot of times I just went to school to eat or just to be able to rest.
So, from being a victim, now you are working with others. How did that transition come about, and what are you doing to help others?
I was a probation officer with Fulton County Juvenile Court after I graduated from Morris Brown College, and I had a caseload, and I was in Judge Boyd's case courtroom, and there was a young girl that was being sentenced for child prostitution, and judge said, send her to YouthSpark once court is over with. And at that moment, I realized that I had so much to give, and I didn't have to hide behind a mask anymore. I didn't have to pretend to be something I wasn't. So I went to YouthSpark, and I talked to Jennifer Swain, and I explained to her who I was, and I had used my body, and I said I'm a prostitute, and she let me know right then that I wasn't. She said, don't you call yourself that. And the moment that she gave me an opportunity to volunteer my time, I realized that the young girls that they were serving reminded me so much of me. And I wanted them to see that there's glory on the other side. And it was just a powerful a way to come into a facility and just to be able to give back to the children who I knew that needed the same help and the same love and the same compassion that I needed as a kid.
But so what do you do now?
Right now,
specific?
I'm a case manager for YouthSpark, so it's my responsibility to make sure that the children have assessments, to make sure that they're in school, to make sure that if there's a need in their home, that we address the need, to make sure that they're attending school, to make sure that they have the things that they need, whether it's uniforms, whether it's toiletries, whether it's eyeglasses, whatever it is to make them happy and to make them whole and to make their house function is our responsibility to make sure that they have it, whether it's counseling. We have group therapy once a week, and we just try to pour into them so that when they walk in the doors, they don't come in the same way, they leave different than the way they came in.
That's an amazing story, and thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Great to have you. My thoughts on today's topic when we come back. Well, as we wrap up today's show, I found it to be very moving myself. Now I think to those of you who are listening, you heard from two people, and I think you understand now or can understand why I thought it was important to put this task force together to begin to figure out what's going on, how we can help tackle this problem, and hopefully come up with some solutions that will be beneficial to our young girls in particular, but also our young boys. It's distressing, it's disturbing to know that this city, this county that we all love is recognized, in spite of all of the good things, that this is a black mark on us, and that has to change. That's the whole purpose of this task force, and thank God for women like the two women I've had on our show today. Until our next show, this is Rob Pitts, Chairman, the Chairman's Circle. So those are my thoughts. What are yours? Connect with me online to let us know. Well, that's our time. Thank you for yours, and a special thanks to our guest today. We'll see you next time on the Chairman's Circle.